Security is always a major concern. And don't forget, Southwest governors, ministers and leaders recently calling for an adjustment to the security architecture. The military also updating the Boko Haram terrorist list, a fresh manhunt for them, asking for more support from sister agencies. And don't forget that months ago, the president actually asked the service chiefs to rejig the whole security architecture of the nation. But still, we have these issues prevalent. In fact, some would say we have more challenges on our hands. So this morning, we seek to find some resolution, at least. Where do we go from here? What have we missed? And what do we need to do? Those are the big questions we'll be asking our guests this morning. So let's introduce them. We have joining us from our Abuja studio, Major General Garba Wahab, is former Director, Operations Army Headquarters, former General Officer commanding 1 Division, Nigerian Army, Kaduna, also former Chief of Army Administration. Good morning and thank you for joining us on the program. And here in our Lagos studio, we have joining us Oyekachi Adekoya, who's Zonal Provost Marshal, Association of Licensed Private Security Practitioners of Nigeria. Great to have you on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Well, Major General Wahab, I'd like to begin with you, especially hearing what the Chairman House or Senate Committee on the Army has to say about this, the idea of de-radicalizing Boko Haram terrorists. And that got a lot of people asking questions that, how did this become a thing in the first place? I mean, if we are to weigh that, that particular idea, do we say it has worked for us or not? So if you could just help us, how did we come about this idea to de-radicalize Boko Haram terrorists? What was the purpose and how well has it worked for us?
Thank you very much. The issue or idea of de-radicalization actually did not start from the military. Excuse me. It was an idea brought in by those that we've consulted. And the belief is you cannot keep somebody perpetually in prison. For instance, those who are arrested from, say, 2011, 2012, were kept in detention perpetually for up to 2015-16. And then you now have Amnesty International and co. shouting, you cannot keep these people. They have human rights. They have things to do. You have to do one of two things. And unfortunately, you take people to the court. The Constitution is very clear about the Federal High Court being responsible for the trial of such people. And you take 100 to the Federal High Court, and out of the 100, you have close to 95 being freed. And so if they are freed, that means they are gone completely. And everybody realized that when you get into this type of issues, it has to do with the mind. So you have to start working on the mind. And that is the essence of de-radicalization. Talk to them, try and de-radicalize them, even though it's very difficult to know whether somebody had really repented because you don't know what is in the guy's mind. But, well, I'm happy that the senator, the chairman, had come out to say he's opposed to that. They should come out and always and actually assist in countering the narratives of Amnesty International and human rights groups, because this is where the problem is coming from. The person who had fought, who had arrested, who had kept, is not the one trying to find a solution to the problem. It is not a military problem. So the solution should have been a national issue, a whole national issue. The legislative and the executive should come together and decide on what is the way forward.
Just to be clear, pardon me, I need to get something clear. Are you saying that the military was never in support of this idea of de-radicalizing Boko Haram terrorists in the first place?
I'm not saying they were not in support. If you keep somebody for 5 years and then you are being accused of tampering on the person's human rights, why don't you do what others are doing? Why don't you find a way of de-radicalizing? And that's why Operation Safe Corridor started. Okay, if that's the way forward, let's take them to Gombe and start looking at how do we get other agencies, other organizations to come in and be part of this. That's what really happened. It was not like the military started saying, okay, let's radicalize people and take them back to their villages. No.
So who are these others you mentioned that were doing this? Because from what I know, if people commit a crime, they're taken to prison to serve their time, not de-radicalized. So who are the others that we copied this from? And It would seem that there was pressure,
please,
really.
You need to realize that in Nigeria, a single case, if somebody steals 5 naira and is taken to court, how many years do you go through that? We have people who have been arrested since 2009, 2010, and have been kept in detention. The military cannot keep on keeping all these guys. And meanwhile, nobody, no agency, no ministry had come up to say, no, we need to keep these people, either for government or for the legislature or whatever. So it is the military who is actually defending itself. We have to keep these guys. We have to keep on holding on to them. And then everybody come up from US, from UK. You must find a way of finding a solution to this. Let us start to de-radicalize. National Human Rights Commission cannot say they are not aware of this. A lot of other agencies cannot say they are not aware. So it's easy to blame others when in reality people are not ready to do their job. Let everybody do what their responsibilities are, and we move on.
So
and that's the problem with our security architecture today.
So would you say that this whole de-radicalization idea has been effective in this fight against terrorism for the past 10 years or more?
I'm not saying it's been very effective, because when you look at the number of people who have been affected, it's so minimal compared to the number of those who have been detained, and compared to the numbers of the victims. And yes, Senator Ndume had a point, and a lot of people have complained that you cannot leave those who are victims and be trying to resettle those who have been perpetrators. And moreover, you need to take in the leadership of the various local governments and the areas where these things are taking place into consideration. But above all, it is important for each agency, for everybody to do their duty, and that will have assisted in moving the nation forward. Rather, we're not. And it goes through the gamut of the security architecture.
Well, that security architecture word that he just mentioned there is always something of interest. But let's open with Mr. Adekoya. I'm pretty sure you have so many things that you want to react to in all of the things that he has said. But let's begin with that part of the de-radicalization. Senator Ndume has made it clear that he is opposed to it because, according to him, you know, these people become informants to those who have not repented or those who are still within the, you know, actively, you know, insurgent and all of that. How do you react to that?
So I listened to the Major General retired, and going from what he has said, clearly there are people who are failing to do their job. Because de-radicalization in itself is not bad. There is a strategy, a military strategy that's called building a golden gate. When you push an insurgent force to the wall and you have them contained over a long period, you must build them a golden bridge. So give them also an opportunity for amnesty, as it were. Give them an opportunity to be reintegrated back into society, because the cost of war is much more than the cost of peace. So at some point, we must do some cost of benefit analysis. Now, has it worked for us over the 10 years period? To some extent, yes. Has it been very effective? No. Maybe there are some other non-institutional factors, which are some of the reasons why this is not working. Because when you reintegrate somebody back to society and he has no means of livelihood, you know, it has nothing to do. He falls back into, which is why Senator Ali Dume was saying that if you give them 50,000, they go back to it. Because don't forget that Boko Haram and ISWAP also are parading themselves as a form of government and providing some level of governance in those ungoverned spaces which you earlier alluded to. You see, so if a man is earning 20,000, 30,000 a month, you know, he would do the bidding of his paymaster. So you can de-radicalize as a strategy, but not in isolation.
Now, you've touched on something that is quite interesting there. And so many people have also said the same thing.
Yes.
That there is a strong connection between insecurity and economic insecurity. How do we begin to bridge that? Or what is it? Is this something that was lost on us all the while?
So, firstly, I don't envy the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I do hope that the next president we get will be somebody who is a bit younger, because the job of the president of this country demands a lot. Nigeria is quite big. We have over 220 million people. The landmass is massive, over 774 local governments. We don't even yet have a full count of the MDAs we have as at today. Some argue about 105 MDAs, 136, 250 something. So the numbers of MDAs and sub-departments. So Nigeria is very big, very big. The issues are quite much, okay? Honestly, we can sit here and try to maybe look at so many issues at the same time. But I do want to say that insecurity, as it were, is not one man's, or security is not one man's responsibility. It is the responsibility of the collective. Now, where the system has consistently failed over the years, emphasis being over the years, we find ourselves in the situation where we find ourselves in right now. So
when you say the system has been failing, in what area has the system failed?
So, I mean, if you look at this case in point, you look at the administration of criminal justice, the military would apprehend, but then what do they do from there? They must hand over to civilian authorities. And if you don't have special courts to address the issue of terrorism, what do you do with those who have been apprehended? In some crimes, they will have wasted some of those captives. But then, you see, rightly, the Amnesty International and other civil society organizations are not the problem of the military. So I think the military should stop seeing them as being in opposition to them. They are there to ensure the full enshrinement of human rights. And whether you are alleged a terrorist until proven beyond a reasonable doubt. So there are some of those issues of criminal justice system. Like you talked about the issues of economic security, which I was going to also address. If you look at the 2019, what you call the National Security Strategy document, which was revised from 2014's document, we had identified the issue of human security as being key to national security. But does this government have the wherewithal to address the issues of human security?
But it is this government that came up with that document.
Absolutely. You can espouse certain values. Let me look at the 2021 budget, just out of interest. We are projected to fund a deficit of about 50% of that budget. 5.6 trillion of that budget would go into recurrent expenditure. And government doesn't know where the deficit will even come from. So, yes, we can plan on paper, but do we have the wherewithal? So we look at,
but does the government need any, is it so much of a big deal to look at security from the citizen's perspective, as that document said?
Yes.
As opposed to regime protection, as some other people have alluded to?
You see, it will take us probably a full year to talk about the issues of security we have in this country. Regime protection, yes. So we have a state-oriented security structure that seeks to deal majorly with the issue of regime protection, which is why some will allude that some of the service chiefs, who themselves we also have on good authority, that they also want to resign, are being retained.
So let's dwell on that for a bit. That document you talked about was supposed to focus on the citizens, not on the regime.
Absolutely. Now, this is the first time statewide we would take an approach that goes away from regime protection to protecting the Nigerian citizen. But as we always say, on paper, we have beautiful policies, but the issue is implementation and execution. In economics, we also talk about what you call non-institutional factor or non-institutional constraints that will pose a bit of a challenge to the implementation of certain policies. So policy, what is policy? Policy is a guide to action. So we have in print a policy direction for the federal government, which says the government will prioritize education, healthcare, access to basic amenities, will fuel within its reasonable limits and powers, employment opportunities for Nigerians. This administration continues to say it wants to leave 100 million people, leave them out of poverty. But does this government have the wherewithal? So I agree with you. You cannot divorce macroeconomic issues from issues of security, because security is expensive. And if macroeconomic fundamentals are not right, you cannot get security right.
Okay. Well, General, every time we talk about security, most of the time we're looking to the military. For how long will we continue to engage the military, to task Nigeria's military with internal security challenges?
Well, it's a misnomer. Just like you said, the national security strategy is very clear as to the division. you have the defense, which is the military aspect of security, while you have internal security, which is meant for the Ministry of Interior, which is supposed to have some elements. For instance, the main factor, the main element of the internal security architecture, the police has a problem. The Constitution itself had created a problem for the police. The police has the IG, the Police Service Commission, which can hire and fire everybody or anybody less the IG himself. And so the Police Service Commission is virtually responsible for officers' cadre, the promotion and posting. Unfortunately, even the beat soldier, the beat policemen have been taken away from the IG himself because now they are in court. The IG wants to recruit, and the Police Service Commission says he is responsible for recruiting. So there's a problem there. And then you now have a police affairs now turned to a ministry. And then you have a PAMSEC in the presidency who is responsible for that. Another layer for the police. Unfortunately, none of these, the internal minister, the Minister of Interior does not have control over the police that is supposed to be the main actor. So we have an issue in the setup already. You now have the customs removed from Interior again and placed to finance because we are looking at money and not security. And yet you cannot develop without security. You can't have security without development. The two goes hand in hand. So the architecture of the internal security is faulty. The military is only expected to come to the aid of the civil authority. Now they are virtually policing 34 states of the 36 states of the Federation. That's where the problem is coming from. The military is supposed to come in, assist, and go back. So the buffer between the police and the military had virtually been wiped out, which is the mobile police. Now the mobile police is being given to individuals. If you can pay, even the Police Act 2020, even though section 18 to 22 of it indicated that you have supernumerary policemen who are employed on a month-to-month basis. But in reality, it is the bomber police that are employed. And you pay, and they are taken away. So there is no buffer. Now there's a breakdown completely. If you are not careful, it's going to affect us seriously, more than what we are facing now. The Northeast, the police, virtually most of the police stations have been burnt. The same thing has happened in the Northwest, the Southeast, South-South, North Central, and the latest one is during the EndSARS protest, when a police station was attacked in Lagos and the weapons, arms, and ammunition were carted away. So in the 6 zones of the Federation, the police are virtually losing their police stations. So how do we now ensure that there is internal security without the military? We need to look critically at that.
So essentially, General,
we need to look at what is happening at the local government level.
Okay. Well, just to go ahead and complete your thoughts on that one, because some of the things that you said are quite disconcerting. Conclude your thoughts on the local government level.
Look at what is happening at the local government level. There's nothing that anybody does. There's nobody who is not within a local government in Nigeria, 770-something. And yet, we don't have local governments as per local government, despite the 1976 local government reforms.
Yes, on that, General.
Appointed, elected,
on that general, there are some structural issues that you have mentioned, and I think need some clarity for us to understand it better. You have talked about the conflict that you said that the Constitution, Nigeria's Constitution, as is at this moment, has created some confusion for us in managing our security architecture. I'd like you to clear that. And then you also said that there are some other institutional, rearrangements that we have also created to make the whole thing even more difficult, talking about moving customs from Ministry of Interior to Finance. Please clear the air on that and what we need to do so that we can get the security right.
The Police Service Commission, by the Constitution, is empowered to hire and fire anybody and everybody, less the IG. So, what is the power of the IG if it's the one who is responsible, operational responsibility of the police rested with him? He has no right, no power to employ or deploy his officers. He cannot now recruit policemen, because they are, the IG and the PSC are in court over that. That is a constitutional creation. We now have police affairs. Initially, the police was supposed to be under Ministry of Interior. Now you have police affairs, another creation, which is different from Ministry of Interior. So if there is a problem, who is the police going to report to? And then you now have a Police Act 2020 that has now given, created the Police Service Council, responsible for some of the things the IG was supposed to do. Even the military, you have the various services have their council, but there is no commission placed on top. You report to a single ministry. Here you have a Minister of Interior responsible for internal security, yet you have a Police Affairs Ministry, you have a Police Service Commission that is responsible for everybody. So there is a mix-up. And because of that, what the various IGs have done was to bypass the officer cadre and create other agencies or other organs of the police that they can directly use when they want to do anything. And that was the problem of SARS, because the SARS report directly to the IG, not to the commissioner in the state.
Okay.
And that is a major fact that had created the problem.
You have pointed
if you send somebody to a particular state, and there's a police commissioner sitting there, and the man and he's not responsible for those guys, you have a problem. So we mixed up the security environment, and yet we keep on complaining.
Well, you have pointed to some of these mix-ups, and I'd like to take up Mr. Adekoya. A couple of issues raised, really. I mean, constitutional issues. And you recall that some months ago, the president met with the service chiefs. He's had some meetings with them in recent times, and he said at the end that they need to rejig the security architecture, which is a term, it's like the buzz term now, security architecture. And now Southwest governors also said, well, we need to adjust that security architecture. So in approaching this, do we start from those laws that seem mixed up, or we should look at the structures first? How do we approach this adjustment, rejigging, whatever we want to call it?
Yeah, so I think importantly, we want to start from the legislative list, and we look at securities under the exclusive reserve of the federal government, as it were. So some have proposed that we bring security to the concurrent list. And I know that the APC in 2018 had a restructuring committee headed by Governor El-Rufai. And they did also propose some restructuring, particularly when it comes to policing, and propose state policing, and then also taking some other things off of that exclusive list. So I think we can start from there, legislatively. But the question is, do we have that will and the leadership today to push that real thought through? And I do think that the
problem of the will.
It's absolutely a problem of the will. It's a problem of the will, because the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is about one of the most powerful presidents you have anywhere in the world. So if the president really wants to push a thought through, particularly with the kind of assembly we have currently, I don't see this assembly going against the wishes of the presidency. So is there a will, first of all? Now, the question of purpose is a question of design. The current unitary system we have can no longer sustain itself. The highlight of the NSAS crisis was that we looked for the mobile police force. We couldn't find any on the streets. The go-between between the police and the army, yes, is the mobile police force. The mobile police has 67 squadrons spread across Nigeria, with ACPs as the squadron leaders and squadron commanders. And in the height of the crisis in Lagos, regular police were, of course, they were stretched beyond their limits. We couldn't find that interventionist force of the mobile police force.
We couldn't find it because they were not there, or they were just missing in action, or what was responsible?
There are structural problems. Again, like the general said, there are structural problems. The mobile police team should be in a barracks. Do you have barracks for them? They should be contained as a reserve force, not to be seen on the streets. By design, you shouldn't see a mobile police officer on the street. It's actually an aberration. It's even an insult to the sensibilities of Nigeria, even by design, to see a mobile police officer on the streets, because that's not what they are for. So structurally, there's a big problem. Now, what you have is a mobile police force that is just basically operates a pay-for-service system. So they are all engaged, in fact.
Pay for service.
It's absolutely pay for service. The IGP had to send 2 signals. He sent the first signal asking the squadron commanders to withdraw their personnel from private interests. That was not heeded to. You say, how do I know? Proof was that he had to send a second signal. And even as it is, the second signal is also not being adhered to.
So you're saying the mobile policemen are currently attached to various VIPs?
They are still there. Now, why should they still be there? The question is, you have these squadrons, which is about a minimum of 600 to 700 or 800 men. You put them in a place, there is no logistics, no welfare, no housing, no accommodation. How is the squadron commander supposed to take care of the welfare of his men? So he has to put them to work. And the bigger problem now we have is that we have total, say, police 300,000, military, say, 100,000. We don't even have the required personnel that we should have. But we are not looking at the private sector.
Pardon me, what's the required personnel we should have?
Currently, police, we should have minimum 500,000 policemen. Minimum.
And military?
Military, it depends on the war situation, but about 150,000 to 200,000 military.
Okay.
But can we afford to pay for that currently?
Big questions. So this is what we'll do. We'll go on a quick break now.
Yes.
When we return, we'll try to answer some of his questions. Don't forget, there was that robbery in Ajah, broad daylight yesterday. These are some of the issues we'll take on in a moment. Please stay with us.
Wait, on the police, now I'm dropping without
So this is what happened in Ajah yesterday. It looks like scenes from a movie. And I know for weeks now people have been calling on the police, especially in that area. You have cultists clashing every other day. You have estates being broken into, people wielding different weapons. And they're asking, where are the policemen? The IGP has asked the men to come back. The Police Service Commission has appealed. Even ex-IGPs have said, get back to the streets. But still, it doesn't appear as though they're back.
So how would they get back?
How hard is it to get back?
It's very difficult to get back because it's no longer business as usual. What we don't like to talk about, the elephant in the room, is that the police to some extent also does some self-funding through some of the proceeds they get from the checkpoints. Now the body policy is not favorable to those nonsense they do on the streets.
When you say checkpoints, pardon me, you mean the bribes and the rest?
We can call it what we want to call it. The toll plazas set up by the police,
Toll
the
plazas.
checkpoints, yeah, anything we want to call it.
I know toll plazas. I
Yes.
don't know the one set up by police.
Well, let's call it what we want to call it. But now you won't see them on the streets because they don't even feel secure enough to come out on the streets. The DPOs allegedly get returns, and the DPOs in turn have to fund their divisional operations through some of those proceeds because there's paucity of funds.
That sounds like a problem for me. Why would the DPO have to raise his own funds when he has an officer he responds to?
You tell me, somebody has to tell me.
No.
The National Assembly has to tell me. The president also has to tell someone.
I don't understand.
Yeah.
Just as we all know,
Yes.
the police is controlled centrally, and consequently, they should be able to fund all of their DPOs, their police stations, their commands, everywhere. So what's the problem with that?
You see, that's the big problem. We want to run a federal police system, but we don't have the budget and the wherewithal for a federal structure. So we leave ourselves exposed to a lot of improvisation in the system. Where you have 330,000 disgruntled, almost 330,000 disgruntled persons who are not well kitted, well resourced. Look at the 2021 budget, for example. The police is proposing to procure only 1,000 bulletproof vests for its 330,000 strong force.
But maybe they still have some in the kitty.
You would hope. So if they have some in the kitty, how many policemen do you see wearing bulletproof vests?
Do they all have to wear bulletproof vests?
If you put somebody on the streets, look at a typical roadblock for the police. Say he has maybe 4, 5, 6 policemen. The policeman is standing with his rifle. First of all, he's working 12 hours, sometimes 24 hours. He's holding a rifle. The value of the rifle in the black market is about 1 million to 1.5 million per rifle. So how difficult is it to overrun a police checkpoint and retrieve those rifles from them?
So listening to...
So you're leaving them exposed every time they're on the streets, deployed, without medical cover, without bulletproof vests.
So when the president, right after the, during the NSAS protest, says that, he has tried to meet these demands, and he talked about remuneration for the policemen. You're saying that that is not even enough. He's not even scratching the surface when it comes to welfare and giving them appropriate equipment to work with.
I don't know if we have looked at the 2021 budget as proposed. 400 and something billion. And again, to be fair to this president, they have over the past 3 years consistently increased, at least sought to increase. The budget release is something that is different. They've sought to increase the allocation for the police over the past 3 years, consistently. I give it to them. So in the 2021 budget, they are proposing an expenditure of about 441 billion thereabouts. Over 400 billion will go into recurrent, as it is. If you then try to factor in these proposed increments, we saw some numbers bandied on social media, you may be looking at a police budget of about 600 and something billion. This government doesn't have that resources currently. And part of the reason why we don't have the funds is that we have over 236 MDAs. Some of them, if you go back to 2011, we had what is called the Oransaya
report?
Yes, report. Over 800 pages. Report on how to restructure, because security is expensive and security is an enabler of economic development and prosperity.
So it should maybe be number one on the list in terms of priorities. But just a moment, because I can imagine Major General Wahab also wanting to weigh in on some of the issues we have raised. But first, with that robbery in Ajah just yesterday, it took a lot of people by surprise. It was shocking. Broad daylight in the afternoon, and it looked like scenes from movies, like I said. So how did things degenerate that much? And looking at the NSAS protest, in fact, let's begin with that robbery. How did things degenerate? What did we miss there?
It's not today that things have gone bad, and it's not the past 10 years. We've been going down, and we've been giving lip service to improving and improvement. Rather than improving and improvement, we've actually commercialized the police. And like was mentioned by my colleague there, even the Police Act 2020 looked at supernumerary policemen who will come in and be maintained on a monthly basis, month-to-month basis. And if he's no more interested, he gives a month notice to go away. And then the person who is going to hire that person buys or procures the uniform this man is going to wear. So if I want to have 10 policemen in my house, all I need to do is apply, and it's approved, and I'm given the men, or I bring the men, these are the guys I have, and I buy them uniform and whatever. What happened? What control do the police now have over those that are with me? We've lost control. We have lost coordination of what is actually happening. And like I mentioned, the ID is sitting down there with all the paraphernalia of office, but it's been deprived of actually having the control of policemen. He's not in control. Look at, you remember what happened in Rivers between the governor, Amechi, and the commissioner then. So a lot of things had happened, and we peppered those things over. And then the NSAS and its aftermath had shown that we are living in a dangerous period where people will not jump up one day and do whatever they like. Because right now, no policeman will come out and no citizen will come to assist anybody. And the reason is, if you're injured, you get to a hospital, the first thing the doctor will ask you, even though they said it's been overturned for some time, go and bring a police report. And if the police is not ready to give you a police report, the person that you have taken or yourself would rather die because nobody's going to treat you. So
General,
we've mixed up a lot of things. Yeah. And until we start removing them one by one.
Talking about
the legislative thing
decentralizing, talking about dissecting.
The legislative issue and remove.
Just a moment. Talking about all of the the things that we need to do. Every time security operatives like you talk about security architecture, it sounds very appealing, very flamboyant in the ears of people. Sounds like we're really doing something amazing. But most of the time, we only mention the military and we only mention the police. After those two, that's all. But then there is a central coordinating office, which is the Office of the National Security Advisor, who is supposed to percolate all of the security issues and disperse them accordingly. When we talk about the security architecture of Nigeria, is it just the Nigerian police and the Nigerian army that we're talking about here? What happened to other agencies?
It is not. That's why I mentioned that the Interior Ministry have been deprived of two major components, the police and the customs have been removed. And then unfortunately, the national security strategy indicated that there should be a national crisis management and coordination center at the office of the NSA. And then there is supposed to be a PC4, Presidential Communication and Crisis Control Center at the presidency. If the monitoring and coordinating center is not performing, the PC4 cannot perform. Because whatever the PC4 is going to do is going to come from the monitoring. We are not actually monitoring, we are not coordinating. And we have a problem even with what do we want our NSA to be? We've left it to the individuals. Some individual will come and they want to be part of the operations, control whatever is happening. It depends on the country. If you want your NSA to just be an advisor, everybody comes, you discuss, and you take your recommendation to the president. This is what we have, and this is what we need to do. We are running an hybrid version of an NSA's office. So the NSA is not actually coordinating much because the NMCMC is not really there. The monitoring and coordinating center is not there. So the coordination is not superb. It's not
let me ask you a quick question, General, because we have to begin to wrap this up. Yes, just a moment. There are so many issues to raise about this one, but let me ask you this one specifically, being a military operative. Now, a good number of people have talked about the terrain that the military operate when we talk about security in the north, especially the northeast more specifically now. You may recall that video that made the rounds of a soldier who was making a video to his commanding officer and talking about the fact that the terrain was so difficult that they have been demobilized by the vehicle is unable to move. And this morning on the front pages of the newspapers, we're talking about some 700 military officers who are amputated and dismissed, largely perhaps because of all of these terrain problems that they have had over the years. So it makes the environment, the security a little more cumbersome, no doubt about that. So those soldiers are endangered right there on the field. They cannot move around, and then they are sometimes under attack. What can be done? Because the men are still out there and endangered as usual. So what can be done to help them prosecute this war on behalf of Nigeria?
The security strategy shifted attention from state-centric to citizenship. But actually, we've not worked on the citizens. We've not raised the awareness of the citizenship as to their responsibility when it comes to the security architecture. So in the Northeast, the average soldier that goes there does not understand the terrain. He's a stranger. So he's trained, he's counseled, and is equipped. This is what you have, go there, go and operate. So there is a need for the locals to assist in, one, providing information and intelligence which will assist. Two, for them to be able to allow the other agencies to come in. Because if you say you don't trust the police, you don't trust this, it is only the soldiers that must be there, you are creating a massive problem. And the problem is the number of soldiers that are available cannot occupy all the areas, for instance, in the Northeast. Carry the entire Nigerian Army, Air Force, and Navy combined. Take them to the Northeast. There will still be problems. So the citizens must come in. The various state governments must be up and doing in whatever their responsibilities are. And like I said, the local governments must perform. We must allow the state governors who are taking the federal government to court. Look,
General,
we don't want autonomy for this.
All right.
We are doing
General,
service to the nation.
All right, General,
Because-
that question, let me bring this
Yeah.
back to Mr. Adekoya now as we wrap this all up. We began with this. I can't begin to task you with that question, but we began with the idea of the fact that there are economic challenges that have exacerbated the insecurity in the nation all over the place. And each region seems to have its own peculiar security challenges. What are the quick wins that we can get now so that we can get out of this quickly?
Unfortunately, although I'm an optimist, there's no quick win to the security issue we have in Nigeria. It would take us minimum 10 years of concerted efforts to resolve the issues that we have, because we have to be deliberate about it. We need to manage a change process, and change process should be managed incrementally. So there are quite entrenched issues. For example, in the Northeast, we have the DIA, the Directorate of Intelligence, Military Intelligence. The military cannot tell you they don't know where Boko Haram is. They have never said that. They have never said they don't know who they are fighting against. They know them. The issue the military has always complained about is equipment. They know where Boko Haram is. They need to be equipped and given a fighting chance to address some of these issues. We may have, say, 30, 40 battalions in the Northeast. The question is, what is the equipment requirement of a battalion? Do they have that standard rationing and supply of equipment? Remember, the military was also asking for an army aviation. That's also not forthcoming. So maybe quick wins. Let's look at the office of the NSA. My own proposal would be that perhaps the next NSA should not be a retired military officer. Let's get someone who will drive the security architecture from a policy-first perspective. What Major General Wahab was saying was very ideal. The NSA should be the clearinghouse for every information concerning security, and the information should be used to design a context-based approach that is very well coordinated. This is what is lacking. I mean, we can talk about the symptoms of the issues between the PSC and the IGP, or the CPs and the squadron commanders, and the fact that the DIG doesn't have the DIG operation doesn't have full visibility over the deployments of men across the country. So these are all symptomatic issues, really. The real issue comes from the presidency and the NSA when the will to drive a new approach to security comes from there. I do believe that every other force will align. And importantly, and let me just round up with this. In 1985, 86, Nigeria produced 60 ABT aircrafts. We had, at that time, an aviation sector that was poised to be a leader in Africa. We are not looking at the human side of even the security industry itself. The security industry, if properly channeled and properly worked, can be a major employer of people in Nigeria.
Okay.
Can we get the licensed private security companies to carry arms so that rather than pay the police through taxpayers, then you have private people pay again? We can create employment opportunity for the teaming Nigerians who can be recruited, trained, and deployed.
Okay.
In any case,
right,
the licensed companies have retired military officers or police officers on the board.
Okay, I think that's something we'll ruminate upon.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Oyekachi Adekoya. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, as well as Major General Garba Wahab, who joined us from our Abuja studio. Thank you so much for your time on the program.